Hi, Councillor Bly. Just wanting to do a quick sound check. Can you hear us in the chamber?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, all good. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
There's Councillor. Oh, he's just saw him. Oh, okay. He's on his way. Yeah, he's coming in. Okay. Hi, Councillor Kirby Young. It's the clerk in the chamber. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, Leslie. Yes, I can.
Yeah, we can hear you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Vancouver City Council Special Council meeting of Tuesday, February the 11th, 2025. Now, this special council meeting was called by myself, Mayor Sim, under sections 2.5A and 14.5 of the procedure bylaw for the purpose of convening a meeting to discuss the members' motion moved by Councillor Fry at the February 4th, 2025 council meeting entitled Choose Canada, Tariffs, and Buy Local Imperative. This special council meeting is being convened by electronic means as authorized under Part 14 of the procedure bylaw. The City of Vancouver electronic meetings, as such, council members may participate in person or by electronic means. If a council member attending by electronic means loses connection during the voting process, team members are available to get you back online quickly while the voting process is suspended. The team members' contact information has been circulated to you. Video of council members speaking and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. Now, in the case of an emergency where we need to evacuate the building, I'd like to direct your attention to the exits. There are 2 exits beyond that, the glass doors and to the left. If the glass doors are obstructed for whatever reason, please direct your attention to the 4 exits inside this chamber here, and please do not use the elevator. If you require accessibility assistance, please remain at your location, and one of our security team members will guide you to a safe location. And finally, I'd like to highlight the fact that we do have a defibrillator at the end of the hall if so needed. I'd like to acknowledge that we are hosting today's council meeting on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and do want to thank them for their generosity and their hospitality and the love and care they show this land that we get to live, work, and play on. I'd also like to acknowledge our incredible team members at the City of Vancouver who choose to come here every single day and make the city a more incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
Mayor Sim in the chair, Councillor Kirby-Young,
Present.
Councillor Dominato, Councillor Bly,
Present.
Councillor Fry, Councillor Montague,
Present.
Councillor Klassen,
Present.
Councillor Meisner, Councillor Zhou.
Present.
You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. So the plan for the day, any comments on agenda items can be sent to council using the web form on the city's website. The link to that form will be posted on X at Van City Clerk. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I remind council that when addressing speakers and the city's team members, we're going to avoid using gendered honorifics and instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. Now, there is one item of business on today's agenda. Item 1, choose Canada, tariffs, and buy local imperative. Now, before we begin this item, if anyone believes that they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict that they wish to declare? Seeing no hands up and no one in the queue, I'm going to proceed. So at the February 4th, 2025 council meeting, this motion was moved by Councillor Fry and seconded by Councillor Bly under new business. So thank you very much, by the way. Council then voted to postpone the item to a special council meeting before February 25th, 2025, and was subsequently scheduled for this meeting today on February the 11th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. The motion is now on the floor. So we'll first hear from registered speakers for this motion. After public speakers, councillors may add themselves to the queue for discussion. Public speakers have 3 minutes to speak to council and should state whether they support or oppose the motion and may only speak once. I will also ask speakers if they are residents of Vancouver if it's not noted on the speakers list. So our first speaker is Amy Robinson. Is Amy on the phone?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Great, thank you. So it's Amy Robinson. I'm founder and executive director of Loco BC. I am a resident of Vancouver, and I am in support of the motion. I believe it's important because the economic recirculation impact of local businesses has been well documented in our research. Local businesses recirculate their revenue locally in the form of profits to local owners, payroll to local employees, purchasing to local suppliers for both inventory and services, and in philanthropic giving to local charities. Local retailers keep between 6 and 8 times the revenue recirculating in the local economy and produce 8 times the revenue and 8 times the jobs per square foot as U.S.-owned multinationals. So we can be much more efficient with our land when we support local retailers. Local restaurants spend 35% of their revenue on local products and services, so they encourage a stronger local business ecosystem. And local business-to-business suppliers create approximately double the economic impact of U.S.-owned multinationals that they compete with. We've been running buy local campaigns in the province for 13 years, and we collaborate with many of the Vancouver Business Improvement Associations across the city. We'd love to have the city's support and partnership on this campaign. I think it's important to leverage what's already working well. Our region has one of the only in Canada with such a long-standing campaign backed by research on the economic impact of local businesses and also the effectiveness of the campaign. While we believe consumer spending is important, we recently expanded the campaign to include local business supply chains, encouraging businesses to localize their supply chains and promote themselves through the campaign. Sorry, I've just lost my notes here. I think government purchasing is critical because consumers spend about $70,000 a year on goods and services. Canadian households spend $70,000 a year on goods and services, but governments spend a lot more, and it makes so much sense to leverage that spending to support the local economy. Defining local is always a challenge when you look at procurement, and also, there's some challenges with trade agreements, but there's been a lot of work done on how to define local and how to support local suppliers, even in the regulatory context that we have now. So we did a report in 2013 on buying local tools for forward-thinking institutions. Buy Social Canada has done a lot of work, and there's a lot of case studies and tools from the BC Social Procurement Initiative. So I encourage the city to be bold in supporting local suppliers to bolster Vancouver's economy and increase economic resilience in the face of not just this tariff war, but also the inevitable disruptions from climate change. I also have a couple of suggestions about potential amendments. I also suggest that you could look at how the city's land use policies could better support citing local businesses in our communities. We can encourage consumers to shop local, but if we're not citing them in our communities, it's much more difficult for them to do so. Loco's launching a new project on supporting commercial affordability and independent businesses, and we're looking at models and tools for developers and municipalities to do so.
Amy, I'm sorry, we're at time. I did give you another 25 seconds because there was a bit of a pause, but
okay, no worries.
Move on. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you. Have a great day. The next speaker we have is Sarah McLeod.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and Council, and everyone listening. You know what? I generally support this motion. There's a couple of things in the language that I want to focus on, and some of the language I know is not the person who brought the motions forward, but I think it's worth talking about how it definitely supports local small businesses' economy, and it talks about the consumer call to action. I think the things that are missing in this motion are protecting workers and the most vulnerable, maybe, the people that aren't necessarily consumers. I mean, I know we're all consumers. But, with less choice, if that is where this goes to, finding more local things. Hopefully we find more local choice, which will be great, but with less choice in general in the market, prices will probably be a little bit higher, and we're already in an affordability crisis. And I've already seen online, ever since the Prime Minister talked, people kind of actually being down on people that can't afford to buy Canadian if they're just looking for the cheapest price. And so I think generally going forward, maybe there's a way that comms can, address everyone doing what they can. But, getting rid of choice will make prices higher for certain things. And there's a lot of workers here that will lose their jobs as we go away from products that are American. I actually used to represent Canada as an athlete, and we only got better when working with the states, like when going to invitationals and stuff. Like in general, competition, I think, makes us all better. And, this will probably show it, now we're being challenged and we're going to look at ourselves and see how we can get stronger and better. And that's great. I just think that I'm worried just some of the most vulnerable people will be missed in this when we're focused so much on businesses and local economy, which is great. But not everyone is a part of that. Also, I really do appreciate, and I just want to say this, the part about streamlined, transparent, and nimble city regulations for change of use. I think transparent is super important. I'm going to hold you all to that as this goes forward. Streamline is like the word, the buzzword of 2025. I think I've heard it in your budget talks. I've heard it in development talks. I've heard it here. Everyone's looking for things to be faster, right? Cheaper, faster, better. As I've said in other meetings, one of those things gives. So if we're streamlining to go faster, like I said, things might get more expensive and we'll have to help each other. But I do appreciate being transparent that when we cut regulations, it's not going to be environmental regulations. I'll be paying attention, I guess is what I'm saying. And thank you guys.
Great. Thank you very much for coming in. Okay, so that is the end of our speakers list. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and speaking to the special council meeting. So now, council, is there any discussion? And it looks like there is. So Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster couple of weeks since it seems like so far away that President Trump was threatening tariffs, and now he's introduced tariffs, and there's a lot of volatility, and I think that was really the impetus behind the urgency to this motion, and recognizing that we have a asymmetrical trade relationship with the United States, and that's at a point of crisis at this point, and we need to be nimble. And we have tools within our abilities to ensure that businesses are poised for success and how we can be more nimble and responsive. And I do take Sarah McLeod's points around making sure that we're not leaving folks behind as well. I think that is an important consideration as we move forward. I think the key consideration with the urgency to this is recognizing that we need to be prepared because there is a high level of volatility with what Trump says and what he does and where we're at. So I won't eat up too much time on this, but I do want to acknowledge Councillor Bly, who I did speak to about this motion, and she reflected on some of her work at FCM and conversations. I think Brampton were pursuing a similar thing, and appreciate that input. And I really appreciate working with the mayor's office on how we could really knit this together, because I think at the end of the day, this is one of the issues that brings us all together, despite our partisan stripes or political leanings. We all care about this country. We all care about our local communities, and this is an opportunity for us to come together and let's just all work as hard as we can to make sure that we are successful as a nation and as a city. So I will leave it at that. I know Mayor Sim has some inputs, so.
Thank you very much. Do I have to see the chair? Yeah. Can I please see the chair to Councillor Meisner? Thank you very much. So first of all, I do want to acknowledge and thank Councillor Fry for introducing this motion. And as you mentioned, we come from different political stripes per se, but we were definitely on Team Canada and working together, and it's been a lot of fun working together on a very challenging during a very challenging time. So I'd like to follow an amendment. So I guess I have to go to the amendment queue. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor or clerks, if you could move us to the amendment queue, please.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so I know a lot of people are nervous right now as we face a trade war and potential tariffs imposed by the U.S. government, and it will hurt Canadians. I believe it's more important than ever before that Vancouverites work together during this uncertain time to ensure that our city remains resilient in an unpredictable trade environment. And we need to develop a strategic response that prioritizes Vancouver's local businesses and economy while supporting Canadian industry as a whole. And that's why Councillor Fry and I have worked together, the Mayor's office and our team, to bring forward this amendment to Councillor Fry's motion that provides further support to businesses and residents through levers that the city does control. So this amendment builds on Councillor Fry's motion to include a new internal roundtable to facilitate the rapid response to tariffs and other economic challenges, with direction to report back on actions that the city can take, including potential temporary fee reductions for patio permits and special event permits, property tax deferral for commercial and/or light industrial properties, and potential adjustments to the city's business licensing regime, including enabling a split license mechanism that could allow businesses to expand the scope of their businesses in the face of economic uncertainty. It also asks council to endorse the creation of a mayor's task force to examine new pathways to make Vancouver the most competitive city for business in North America, including an aspirational goal to achieve an annual 3% growth in GDP through policies that measurably boost the city's economic growth and ensure a prosperous and affordable future. So once again, I really would like to thank Councillor Fry for bringing this motion forward. And with these additional measures, Vancouver will be able to present a united Team Canada approach to tariffs and economic threats that lifts up the businesses that drive our local economy.
Hey, thanks, Mayor Sim. We'll now move to Councillor Bly.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mayor, for the amendment, and also to Councillor Fry for bringing forward the motion. And I think the urgency is warranted. So I'm glad to see that we're prioritizing this meeting. So, and I am actually joining everyone from Washington, D.C. as the Council of the Federation is here with the premiers, and grateful for the opportunity, of course, in the role of FCM president to be invited with the delegation to represent municipalities. So, of course, also glad that I could quickly jump on this meeting in between meetings here. So all that to say, I appreciate the amendment. I think what's important about it is sort of the broad nature of all actions that we can be taking. I think the motion sort of set the tone for that. And then the additional language brought forward by the mayor provides direction to staff to ensure that both engaging with our counterparts, stakeholders, with the province, but also focusing on what we can do locally. And I have also had some conversations related to this, and I think there's a few pieces to highlight, which, and I'm not going to wordsmith and amend, so I'm trusting that sort of all of this will really be captured at the end of the day, because the focus around speeding up permitting is one of the key pieces that we can action in any way. I mean, for sure businesses, but also with housing. We know that our construction sector is going to feel immense pressure should these tariffs materialize, as they have partially already in steel and aluminum announced yesterday. But that could continue, and we know that our construction sector is already under immense pressure related to rising construction costs, fees, labor, and also just a softening of the market overall. So cash flow relief for housing development, I think, is also a critical piece of this. I have planned to bring a motion forward at the end of February to help shift some of that cash flow challenges, and look forward to that discussion at that point. And we're hearing about this in other jurisdictions, as well as with the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade and the province as well. And then I think the interesting part of this conversation is about domestic trade. It is about the ways in which we can partner with the province to advocate for a relaxation of a lot of the constraints that exist amongst our interprovincial trade, and becoming good trade partners with Alberta as our neighboring province and across the territories is a huge opportunity to make our communities more resilient in times of economic pressure. And we know the next 4 years will be that. So I do recognize that property tax increases are not something that are helpful to our business community, and I can recognize the desire for property tax deferral, and I think we just need to sort of consider that very thoughtfully in terms of long-term sustainability, because this could go on for 4 years. at least, if not longer, in terms of the volatility. And I wouldn't want to overcommit ourselves at this stage when really what we want to be doing is incentivizing growth. One quick example is a business owner who was looking to replace a awning and ended up having to pay more in fees than it cost for the actual awning. I think we have more tools in the toolbox to incentivize growth in our local economy. Property tax breaks will be expensive in the long run. Especially at time in an economic environment we can't control. So I hope that we can focus on what it means to really pull those levers to ensure that we can continue to grow as a local economy. And the last thing I'll say is this is a critically important conversation to be happening. And I know, Councillor Fry, you mentioned it was the city of Burlington, a border city, really talking about municipalities as being the sort of economic engines for our entire country. And that really is the lens that we're taking, particularly on that national level. But I think it's critically important that we see ourselves as that mobilizer locally, regionally, and with our province. So look forward to further updates from staff and any opportunity that we can engage with our stakeholders associations, a Chamber of Commerce, Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, of course, and those stakeholders will ensure that we have a resilient plan in place to thrive and sustain some of these unexpected times politically with the U.S. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bly. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Can I ask a question to the city manager through you, Chair?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so my question here is, so there will be a report back based on the amendment. So will there be any recommendations to council, or it'll completely up to council to make a motion for the recommendations regarding the tax, the fee reductions or tax referral?
Thanks for the question. At this stage, I expect that staff would do some analysis and likely would provide some recommendations to council on that. Hard to say without kind of getting into the meat of that, but that would be my intent at this time.
Okay, thanks. Further questions regarding the procurement we made to United States in the last year. I understand it's very small number of vendors, and also the value is pretty small, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so question is, for those products we purchased from United States, are they, do we have any replacement locally in Canada?
So at this point, Councillor, it's a bit premature to answer that. Most of what we purchase from the States is not actually product, it's things like software. So we have not done the analysis of alternatives. That's the type of work that we would do, subject to direction from council today on what the extent.
Okay, so further questions. So we talk about the direct vendors, very small. But what about those indirect vendors? Do they purchase anything from United States? I guess yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, do we know what is the impact there?
We've got some early ballpark estimates, but we need to do more work on that.
Okay. Okay, so I realize there's no timeline in this amendment or the motion. What is the realistic timeline for the report back to council?
Well, I think pending the kind of final wording that council adopts today, we do appreciate the urgency of this. I would say one of the challenges is the fact that the information and the situation keeps changing day to day.
Yeah.
So I think we'll look to really understand what's happening. That will influence the type of work that we need to do. It may be a series of report backs. So it's at this stage, Councillor, I would have to work with our team to provide a more concrete sense.
Okay, so within the 30 days, which we have only 20 some days left, without within the timeline.
We can certainly provide initial response back on elements of the motion. It may not be a fully comprehensive response within that time frame.
Okay, thanks, City Manager. That's all my question. I'll provide some remarks later. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Joe. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, just to quickly reflect, appreciated working with the mayor's office on this amendment and reviewing it in advance, and am supportive and look forward to participating in the task force work, because I think that to some of Sarah McLeod's earlier points as well, there is that importance for transparency and being nimble and streamlined when we approach any kind of big changes. but also recognizing that this is a very, very volatile situation, and it is changing from, so even as City Manager Mokri was just responding to Councillor Joe, I mean, we thought we had a month before the tariffs, and now suddenly there's steel and aluminum tariffs, and who knows what might come next. So I think that the urgency is still captured in this amendment, and I think we collectively recognize that we have to be very responsive and very kind of anticipatory about what may or may not happen. But it's about being prepared. And, you know, as any former Boy Scout would know, it's all about being prepared. So, again, thanks to the Mayor's Office for working on this, and appreciate the collaborative spirit.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Fry. Councillor Klassen.
Thanks very much, Chair. I have some questions through you to staff. So do we have, so how do we ensure that a buy local, buy Canadian approach does not inadvertently raise cost to local businesses and residents, realizing that there might be either a larger or smaller increase as a result of this?
So thanks for the question. There's a couple of different elements to this. I think one is procurement decisions that the city might make, which may or may not have cost implications. And then there's kind of the city's role or advocacy for a broader campaign. Both of those are things that we would report back on in our follow-up to the motion.
Thanks very much. Do we have any existing mechanisms that could be used to assess which capital projects and suppliers we could shift towards Canadian options?
That is an issue that we will be looking at, is the extent to which, I mean, in the case where the city has contracted for the construction of a facility, for example, we don't control the purchases that the contractor undertakes. So there will be limits on that, but that's the type of thing, again, we can report back on.
It's a good point that we would be working potentially with contractors that would contract their own materials and services. I understand. At this stage, and I realize this for early days, City Manager, do we comprehend the potential risks? And I'm not trying to be very clear in my questions. I'm not trying to put any cold water on this. It's just really making informed decisions at this stage. So, do we understand what any potential risks might exist by these shifts in our procurement policies?
I mean, there's a whole number of implications that our team will need to assess in terms of compliance with other trade agreements that the city is subject to. That's one. There are cost implications. There are broader implications of non-tariff responses to the United States. I mean, I think certainly we will be looking to, first and foremost, guidance from the federal and provincial governments around the approach that those levels of governments are taking in response to this. So those are all elements that we would be reporting back to council on, so that there is a fulsome kind of set of data for council to make decisions.
Thanks very much. And broadly speaking, how does the motion as amended align with Vancouver's economic development strategies?
I think generally in terms of supporting the local economy, I think that's something that this council has been very clear on. So at that highest level would certainly see that as embedded in this. But, you know, that's again, work just seeing this now, Councillor, that we would have to do more detailed work on.
And final question, do we have any sense at this point how this work could align with any work at the provincial and federal level to support the Team Canada approach?
Not yet. We're, again, waiting for additional information as it's available from, in particular, the province, but the federal government as well, around the actions that they're taking, supports that they may be extending to consumers and businesses in response to the tariffs. As council's acknowledged, it's a very fluid situation. So we expect that will become clearer over the coming days and weeks.
Thanks very much. Okay, thank you for answering my questions. Just in the short time that I have left, just general remarks in support of both what Councillor Fry and Mayor Sim and our Mayor's Office team have done to do this. I do believe we are at the nexus of a bit of a geopolitical crisis at this time right now, that one that will affect us at the local level. And I think that this motion not only may perhaps lead to processes that will make us more secure as a region and a local government, but it also potentially brings some peace of mind to residents of the city who are probably also feeling deep down some of the anxiety that is sort of spilling across our airwaves and our headlines today. So I'm very happy to support this effort, and realizing that it requires a bit of a shift in thinking in real time, but that's what I know our team can do, and our council is certainly, I think, prepared to support that work as well. So thank you all.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Dominato.
Chair, through you, I have a couple of questions to the city manager. First question, just starting with the rumor and threat of tariffs has been in place for several months now. I'm curious if staff could just expand on some of the areas that they had started to look at with respect to the city prior to this motion coming forward.
Thanks to the chair. So our team has done a preliminary assessment of city's exposure to U.S. trade and U.S. supplies. So that's the primary work that we've done at this point. Again, not understanding the scope of tariffs or counter tariffs. Very difficult to do a lot of detailed assessment there, but we've kind of got a high level assessment of that. That's primarily the extent of it at this stage. Again, to have also been in contact with colleagues at the province in particular around the work that they're doing, so that we're not duplicating and can rely on their analysis around the exposure of the BC and metro region economy to these trade measures.
Thank you. Appreciate that. My other question touches on risk as well, and it was around you noted with existing contracts, for example, you referenced suppliers like around software. I would imagine there's other suppliers that we have with respect to things like insurance benefits, other matters. In any reporting back and recommendations you bring back, would you be bringing sort of the pros and cons and the risks associated with either moving away from certain suppliers, because obviously there's contractual aspects of that, trying to find Canadian alternatives, and what the implications would be of those decisions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that would be part of it. Great. And then my last question is, what do we anticipate the impact would be on capital infrastructure? Again, speaking to either existing contracts that we have for capital infrastructure or future procurement, because that is an enormous part of our work as a city, whether it be paving streets or doing remediation. We're doing currently a Canby Street Bridge for seismic upgrades. Could you comment on that?
So not in a position today to provide kind of cost estimates. I think our team has started to frame that out. But generally in our construction contracts, where suppliers have made bids but are then subject to, for example, tariffs. So this would be on products coming into Canada. They are entitled to pass those costs back onto the city. So we would expect that if there are supplies that are being used in capital projects that are subject to import tariffs, that those costs will be borne by the city. At this stage, again, there has been no announcement at this point around counter tariffs, so not possible to quantify that, but those are the types of things that we'll be watching.
Okay, that's super helpful. I'll pause there and I'll make my comments to the motion generally at the next stage. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Dominato. Okay, seeing no one else on the queue to speak to the amendment, I'll now call the vote. Clerk, if you could please move us to the voting panel, and Council, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, thanks everyone. That passed unanimously. So we'll now go back to the main motion as amended, and I'll turn the chair back to Mayor Sim.
Mike. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So I support this motion as amended. Thanks, Councilor Fry, for bringing forward this motion, and for the mayor for the amendment, which makes the original motion stronger and more complete. I think we are at a crossroad in the country's history now, one where the actions of others threaten to undermine the prosperity we have built with hard work, determination, and unity. It's so unfortunate we have to discuss this at a municipal council meeting because of the newly elected president south of the border. I think for generations, I was listening to the premier speech at Invictus game over the weekend. For generations, Canada and the United States, we have been partners, allies, and friends. We have stood together in time of wars, shared in economic growth, and built a relationship based on mutual respect. But today, so unfortunate, this relationship is being tested. The livelihood of families in Vancouver now at risk because of the policy that prioritize politics over partnership. I think the tariffs really hurt the real people in Vancouver. Maybe job loss, higher cost, attack our workers, and also uncertainty for small business who trying to make an honest living. But I think let us remember, Canada has never been a nation bows to pressure. We have been a country that's never surrendered to our sovereignty or convenience of others. I think same as other municipalities in Canada, Vancouver does not back down. We do not break. We will not be intimidated. Along with others, Vancouver will fight for our industry, our workers, and our right to determine our own economic future. So I think when we look back at this history at this moment in history, we will not see Vancouver as a city coward. We will see a city stood on its ground, fought for our own people, and emerged stronger than ever. So with that, thanks again for Councilor Fry and Mayor for the amendment. 100% support this motion as amended. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Fry and Mayor Sim, for the collaborative effort on this important motion. As has been said, and as you don't need me to tell you right now, we're in a period of immense uncertainty. There has been a temporary reprieve on the broader tariffs, but as we saw yesterday, the U.S. Can no longer be considered a reliable trading partner with the announcement of the 25% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. So with all that said, I'm 100% supportive of the city strengthening its efforts to buy local and buy Canadian. And I know I'm not alone amongst Vancouverites in saying that I've already further adjusted my own purchasing habits and become more conscious of where the products I use originate from, making a strong effort to buy Canadian products wherever possible. I'm also very supportive of the goal of making our city the most competitive for business in North America, as outlined in Mayor Sim's motion, and adopting the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade's 3% GDP growth challenge. I believe this approach will pay dividends for years to come, attracting new business and economic growth and creating new well-paying jobs to support Vancouver families. This council has done a lot of work to make Vancouver more attractive to business investment, but this work is more important than ever, given the threat that we're facing. So I'm supportive of accelerating that. Also, in the mayor's amendment, I'm happy to see the split license mechanism, something that businesses have been advocating for and is commonplace in other large cities. And I really believe that will be beneficial in face of today's economic uncertainty. Like many Canadians, I am resentful and very frustrated that our economy is seemingly hanging in the balance because of the uncertainty created by the U.S. government's approach. And it appears even our sovereignty is at risk, given recent comments from the president over the weekend. It is heartwarming to see Canadians united in pushing back against this unfair attack by the U.S. president and his Republican government. And I say that because I know that not all Americans feel the same way as the president does. We have many American friends and allies on the other side of the border. I still have some hope that cooler heads will prevail on the U.S. side, but I'm not naive. I believe there's a good chance that the broader tariffs will be implemented, given the president's recent comments, and we need to be prepared, which is what we're doing here today at the civic level. So I am pleased with this proactive approach that the council and the city is taking, and I'm very happy to support it, and I look forward to the report back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. And
Echoing my colleagues, bring immense thanks to my colleague, Councillor Pete Fry, for bringing forward this motion in the first place, and to the mayor for the really thoughtful amendments that will really serve our businesses here in the city of Vancouver. I think this is a clear showing of unity, and it's not just unity at this council, but as my colleagues have addressed and commented, is unity across the province and across Canada. And I was listening, and I noted this in my comments last week. I was listening to a radio program a couple weeks ago where the comments were is that President Trump's move around tariffs has actually emboldened Canadians in a way that we haven't probably seen in some time. We're on the verge of our own federal election, which we all know. We have strong points of view on many issues in this country. We're a very diverse country, very diverse regionally, and when we go into elections, it can be divisive at times. But the move, the threats by the U.S. government around tariffs, and now we're seeing the initial implementations of that around aluminum and steel, has brought Canadians together and Vancouverites and British Columbians. I appreciate that the motion is looking to have our staff examine all options and considerations around the tariffs. The mayor's amendments brings a local lens to support Vancouver businesses. And I think we do need to consider in all of this as well, we are acting as a local government, a city. There is a bigger picture here for British Columbians. As we talk about tariffs on aluminum and steel imports, this has an impact for Kitimat. While we're not representing Kitimat today, we do need to be thinking about the impacts for other municipalities outside the Lower Mainland, those who are very resource dependent, whether it be forestry, whether it be mining, whether it be other production, that in fact we're very reliant on to deliver on our commitments and priorities, whether that be housing, which Councillor Bly touched on, addressing climate, trying to electrify more. We rely on a lot beyond our boundaries. And so I just want to put that provincial lens and impact on this. And so with that, I'm happy to support the amendments, happy to support the motion. And I thank you both, Councillor Fry and Mayor Sim, for the collaboration on this work.
Thank you very much. Councillor Claassen.
Thank you very much. And again, thanks to Councillor Fry and Mayor Sim for bringing this decision forward to council. I think it's really unfortunate that we are sort of faced with having to try and match economic force with economic force. I'm reminded of the fact that a lot of the prosperity that we face today is as a result of free trade. And it has been something that has evolved over the last generation that I think has made us stronger as a country, as a region. And it's not something that I would like to see easily thrown away by nativist policies. I'm also reminded about the fact that we do have very robust and strong relationships with our American neighbors and friends and family. I was recently asked to give opening remarks to the cruise ship line international conference that was held here in Vancouver, and many of the stakeholders were from the U.S. who are part of a very big part of that large travel organization, and many of the people that will be coming here to visit and spend money in Vancouver and across British Columbia are going to be from the United States. I was really moved by Premier Eby's words at the Invictus opening ceremony. He stated, I think, what we were all feeling is that we are in a moment, and we are in a moment right now that is not one that any of us that wish that was happening at this time. He did say very clearly that our relationships with the United States have been strong through good times and through bad times, and we'll want to continue to do that. And we'll want to continue to work with people who are going to help strengthen our local economy, investment through technology, and really supporting our other parts of our economy here over the long period. But as much as this whole endeavor of the last few weeks has really bolstered our Canadian pride, Premier Eby was quick to remind us that these were the words of politicians, and the words of politicians of which many of us are in that class right here today, sometimes don't really fully represent the wish and the will of all the people. And right now we're facing that time, and we are faced with the words of a politician. So I think perspective is important and necessary in the time that we're facing right now. But again, I'm very pleased that we are, as a city and as a region, focusing on the challenge in front of us with, I think, some resolve. And again, very thankful that this decision is being put forward to our council today. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Klassen. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'm now going to call a vote. If we can please go to the voting panel and vote on the motion as amended. Great, and the motion as amended passes unanimously. Once again, thank you, Councillor Fry, for bringing this up, and thank you for everyone on council for supporting it. So that actually completes our agenda item. Maybe we have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. This special council meeting is adjourned.